best part about being involved in design at Delta Faucet is we get to travel all over the world. Immersing yourselves in a new culture really unlocks that side of that innovative thinking, that inspiration.
I love you.
What I love about travel is it kind of wakes you up. You become very much a part of what you're seeing in your surroundings.
The apartment on the top of this building is the most expensive apartment in Canada. It's owned by the Crown Prince of Dubai.
You can see a story in all of the buildings, the architecture, in the roads, in the lights. I just love being in that environment. My name is Seth Fritz. I'm the Senior Industrial Designer for Delta Faucet Company.
I'm Jordan Baylor, and I'm a lead industrial designer.
My name's TJ Eads. I am an industrial designer here at Delta.
My name is Ben Stoller. I am the new guy in the design team.
Delta Faucet is a really amazing company. We have the privilege to kind of make your house a home, to maybe change your mood with a shower or make a task easier in the kitchen. What I love about what I do in industrial design is it's this amazing collaboration of a little bit of engineering and a little bit of art. Taking tangible products, combining them with amazing engineering technology, and creating that innovative product for your home. The best part about being involved in design at Delta Faucet is we get to travel all over the world. Getting out of the country, immersing yourselves in a new culture really unlocks that side of that innovative thinking, that inspiration. To get out of your comfort zone, you start to pay more attention, your senses are opened up. We had heard great things about what was happening with architecture and history in Vancouver. That's really important. We look to architecture for a lot of inspiration. One of our faucet lines, Aura, is a direct representation of the architectural boat tour in Chicago. If you look at it, it's very linear, it's very monolithic. When we travel, we try to mix up who the designers are, and that's important to us, that we don't want to send people that think the same. So myself, I have one way of thinking. TJ is a little bit more creative than I am, which I love because he challenges me constantly. Jordan has a different perspective. She's a foodie. I love listening to her and watching her get immersed in that food culture. And then Ben's new to our industry, and I love that because he has a fresh perspective on everything. I know very little about Vancouver, so I'm really looking forward to it. We decided to take myself, TJ, Ben, and Jordan to Vancouver to really immerse ourselves in the culture, to study architecture, to take a look at the history, go see some public art. We heard that there's some really cool installations that are throughout the city. We're gonna have a guided tour that's gonna help curate that, which is great because we can ask a lot of questions, and that'll give us some more inspiration fuel to kind of bounce off of each other at night.
I'm Allie. I'm going to be your tour guide for the next couple of days. And I run the Tour Guides Collective, which is basically a group of local sort of, I guess some would call us nerds. We like to think of ourselves as enthusiasts for local sort of public art, architecture, history, contemporary issues, whatever. We really like to sort of flesh out the real Vancouver and share that with you guys.
The style and architecture that I'm drawn to is modern, contemporary. When we first arrived in Vancouver, one of my first impressions was it was just so clean and pure. The variety, the people, the cultures, you really had to look at everything and experience it all.
Whoa, do you see the stuff up here? This cantilevered glass? Wow. That's pretty spectacular. Wow.
A few of you have commented there's a lot of development, a lot of, sort of newer buildings, a lot of glass towers. Vancouver is a development crazy city. We don't have a lot of room to grow. The city realized that maybe instead of just stopping development, we start clawing as much as we can back from the developers because it is such hot property here. And when they go to submit their bids, they will try to out-compete each other for what they're going to contribute. And one of the new rules in Vancouver is you have to contribute significant budgets to public art in the vicinity of your development if you're going to get the contract. And you can actually get more than your allowed space, more than your allowed floors, by contributing extra money and extra space to public art, to heritage preservation.
I loved the idea of trading airspace or the ability to have more density in your building by giving attention to public art. I think that's something that, as a designer and obviously a supporter of the arts, I can really get behind.
This is actually a federal building. The Department of Oceans and Fisheries is in here, the Ministry of the Environment. But just like everybody else, they are beholden to this bylaw that any new structure has to contribute a significant amount of their budget to a public art project. So they went to a local artist called Alan Story and said, Alan, we want you to make something that represents Environment Canada. And he came back with this. And so with this piece, these squares are actually linked in real time to the elevators inside the building. And his message is that what's happening behind these closed doors in these big glass towers is impacting us. It's impacting our space, our environment out here on the street.
I can relate to that type of art or that type of thinking mentality because here at Delta, we're designing every day and we have to think outside of the box, really challenging ourselves. What are people gonna like? How are they gonna feel? Is there gonna be an emotional connection?
The whole idea behind this building is it was supposed to look like this giant rocky crag jutting out of the water, covered in all this sort of flora and fauna of the sea. You can see the salmon, the seahorses, the big kelp beds at the front. And when it was built, this was the tallest building in the British Empire. Today, it's completely dwarfed by everything around it, and they really wanted to kind of incorporate it and actually arch over it. So these guys actually own this building, and they were able to get all that extra square footage by renovating this, retrofitting it, and actually making it LEED certified. So it's a very sustainable building.
It's a 1930s building that's LEED certified.
Exactly. So they've completely gone in and gutted it and now made it very sustainable, very green and sort of water and energy efficient. And by doing so, they were granted much more square footage for their development.
It's so different from everything else down here, too.
Yeah, it's a good window into what this area would have looked like back in the day. This is one of the newest hotels in the city, the Pacific Rim. And they thought, well, we've seen a lot of sculptures and a lot of different designs around. We want to wrap a poem around our building. That's going to be our public art requirement for the bylaw. So they went to a poet and he wrote this one-line poem. Lying on top of a building, the clouds look no nearer than when I was lying on the street. And it's supposed to be this great sort of egalitarian call that whether you're up here, at the great heights of these buildings up in the penthouses, or whether you're just schlepping it down here with the plebs down on the street, we're all just as far from the clouds. Now, the irony to this is the apartment on the top of this building is the most expensive apartment in Canada. Like, they probably couldn't have picked a more ironic building to put the poem on. Thanks so much for spending your valuable holiday time up here with me, listening to me rambling on about the sort of history and art of the city, and I look forward to showing you guys around tomorrow.
Oh, we appreciate the insight.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys.
So much.
See you later.
We're about to go on a ferry ride, which is really cool because I think what it'll do is it's going to get us away from all the concrete, give us a little bit of peace, and it'll give us a new perspective, which I think is really important for this trip. How you doing?
Welcome aboard. Just watch your step here.
Look at that. That's incredible.
This is the athletes village here. So this was built for the Winter Olympics in 2010. The whole project was a LEED gold standard, if you know what that is.
Really?
So the whole thing is green roofs. It catches all the rainwater and built to be used for the Olympics with the idea that they would be sold afterwards.
That's smart, right?
Yeah, because
Prime real estate, beautiful.
it's hard to imagine seeing it this way, what it was before. This was all industrial, piles of gravel, an asphalt plant, dump trucks coming and going all the time. This stadium was used for the opening and closing ceremonies. It was already there.
I am the new guy. I just graduated. I've been here for 5 months. I have a background in sustainable natural resources and environments.
So I'm really inspired by the architecture and the greenery combined with that architecture, how it makes us feel and experience our surroundings.
What I love about travel is it kind of wakes you up. You kind of settle in and you become very much a part of what you're seeing in your surroundings.
So Vancouver's founded in May of 1886. June, we burnt the whole thing to the ground. Over 400 buildings and only a few survived.
Art and progress are going hand in hand. We're not going to forget about our past, but we are going to move forward.
This morning, we're about to go visit the Granville Island market, which we're all very excited about because it's food. We all love to eat. It's always an important part of our travel. I love markets. I love farmers markets. I love anything artisan or anything that feels very local.
Welcome to Vancouver Foodie Tour's Granville Island Market Tour. My name is Lydia and I will be your host. I hope you guys are all hungry.
Oh, wow, that is really good. I think I was the biggest pusher for the food tour. I'm kind of the team foodie, I suppose. I'm always ready to eat. but I think eating is such an experience and it affects so many of your senses. I think that's something that's really inspiring to me as a designer. We got to try a lot of different types of food. We had meats and cheeses, fresh bread, you know, the savory, the sweet, a little bit of everything.
It's cheese. How do you go wrong?
That's good.
I turned around, saw Seth, Ben, and TJ. Everyone had their phones out, taking a picture of the same thing, and I think we were all oblivious to the fact that we're all within, feet of each other, looking at the same detail. And unfortunately or fortunately, that's very typical for our group.
Just stuff like this, we're just naturally attracted to. Even like the nails, the fasteners.
The texture is incredible.
Yeah.
Texture was stuck out to me.
You can't take us anywhere.
So you can look up and see some of the pulleys here. Those are original to the building.
That's incredible.
10 tons.
Wow. Sorry.
That's okay.
We can't help it.
Welcome to Number One Orchard, the oldest fruit stand here in the market. They have been here since 1979. So you can see some beautiful apples there today. You'll notice the apples here, they're not shiny like the ones you get in your normal grocery stores. And that is because the ones that you get in your grocery stores are typically waxed just to preserve them and let them stay a little bit longer. So then you might be wondering how they preserve their apples here. Normally in your fridges, oxygen is a thing that deteriorates your food, right? So what they do is they actually roll their apples into a cold storage room and they drop down that oxygen level by pumping in nitrogen into it. That drops the oxygen level down to about 1% to 2%. And preserves the apples. So the apples that we're enjoying here today, they're from last winter, believe it or not. And You'll be able to see how amazing they still are. All right, some beautiful honey crisp apples. Help yourself. Got plenty to spare.
Really, these are from last season?
Yeah. That's crazy. Are you kidding? Isn't that crazy?
These taste like they're from this week.
Yeah.
Outstanding apple. Wow.
Have more, I got lots.
Please.
Yeah, help yourself.
I'll take it back.
So the question is, how do you get nitrogen into your fridge at home?
That sounds dangerous.
Like the sound of that.
If you want to follow me.
Nailed that one.
He hand cuts every single donut one by one.
Oops.
He knows just when
Yeah,
to
so no
turn
timer, he just knows.
He just knows.
Tip, 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 tip,
You can
tip.
get it.
That's awesome.
The freshest.
You guys ready for this?
Yes.
Born ready.
I'm seeing things differently. I love you.
I loved those donuts.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
They are. Very good.
Love it, especially the cauliflower.
Here's the sauce here.
Fancy sauce.
Ranch dressing.
I think that's really sophisticated.
Why do industrial designers need to go visit a market and experience a food tour? It's really important for this team, for us to experience life together. What that does is it kind of removes that guard. I'm not here to look for a design inspiration. I'm here to just enjoy life.
Go to the foodie tour. Woohoo!
I was so stuffed after leaving the Granville market that I definitely needed a good bike ride.
This will do.
Sweet.
All right.
We're good.
You guys know how to ride bikes? Yeah, got the belt.
I think the most important thing for preparing for an inspiration trip is just to be open-minded. Trends and fashions evolve over time for a reason, and people get bored. And I think when you have new things in front of you, you're keeping that fresh face where anything's possible.
We're getting ready to meet Allie, and he's going to take us through Gastown, which I'm interested to see where that name comes from.
The first thing you'll notice is there's train tracks below our feet. And these are pretty important because this is the terminus of the Transcontinental Railway, the Canadian version. And that ends right below your feet, actually underneath this building over here. These go all the way out to Halifax on the East Coast, over in the Atlantic. And that's essentially the reason why we're standing in Canada now and not in the United States. Most people don't realize just how close this was to actually becoming annexed by the United States, especially after they went and bought Alaska. So this is essentially was the steel ribbon that they built to keep those pesky Yankees down south of the 49th parallel.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So Vancouver, like a lot of cities, had a great fire. We had the distinction of doing it a couple weeks after we were founded. So Vancouver was founded in May of 1886. June, we burnt the whole thing to the ground. Over 400 buildings and only a few survived. Because the city was built out of timber. Timber was cheap. This was what was built just after the fire. We realized that even though stone and brick is a bit more expensive and a bit more labor intensive, it's also a lot more fire resistant. So the architecture that you see around here, that's why it's kind of got this form.
Walking around is the best way to take in the city, and I love looking at things, whether it's door handles or corbels or shutters or textural tiles. I love it when there's something that's kind of surprising as you're looking at a facade of a building. I only find inspiration when I'm not looking at faucets. So being able to look at something outside of that medium and then to transition that back, that's where the real new opportunity lies.
This is part of the New Woodwards development. And you can see, obviously, very modern structure, very tall compared to everything else in this area. But they've also taken a lot of care. It's got that flat iron shape.
One of the things I love is the mix of modern architecture with the historic architecture. There was one particular building on the backside in an alley that had this amazing metal structure. It was just really intriguing that they would take that much time for the back of a building, that much design, that much thought. It's something I can really appreciate.
Gastown, most people assume it's named after maybe some gas works or gas lamps. It's actually named after a guy who had the unfortunate nickname of Gassy Jack. His mother called him Jack Dayton, but he was known to the citizens of Vancouver as Gassy Jack. This is him over here. What did Jack do that was so noble and heroic that he has a whole area of town named after him and a big statue? He opened the first bar. He opened Gassy Jack's Globe Saloon. 1867, and if you're wondering if that's important, along with the name and the statue, look at the street layout here. You've got four of the oldest streets in the city, Water, Alexander, Powell, Corral, and they all converge here because this is the site of the bar. He actually dies 1875, so 11 years before the railway arrives and this becomes the city of Vancouver, but he basically laid the framework for the city that grew around it. So, you know, we like to joke Vancouver was born around a mill, but raised around a pub. And if you come back here when the sun goes down, the area, you know, people might be dressed a little differently. The liquor's probably a little bit more top shelf these days, but really the activities going on haven't changed a whole lot. So to Jack, a man of vision, and that's who this area is named after. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, guys.
Appreciate
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
What I really love about Gastown is it's obvious, it's embracing the history of Vancouver. You can see a story in all of the buildings and all of the architecture, in the roads, in the lights. There's a story to everything. I just love being in that environment.
You are probably our most modern on the team. What did you think of all the modern architecture yesterday, and the shapes and the buildings?
Vancouver has this very positive, forward, progressive-looking ideology. And they know that they need to preserve their historic culture, so it's art and progress are going hand in hand. We're not going to forget about our past, but we are going to move forward.
You are probably our most modern on the team. What did you think of all the modern architecture yesterday, and the shapes and the buildings?
Still soaking it in. I mean, I don't...
Did you like it?
Yeah, I enjoyed that everything is unique in the details.
Certainly the modern parts succeed at being that modern and sleek and maybe a little bit less cozy feel to it. And when we took the tour of the heritage parts, that's certainly the area that you want to be in to walk around. So each part of the city, I think, does its own thing well.
You guys know I'm not modern when it comes to faucet design, but I think right now we're in a time where, you know, all those lines are being blurred anyway. So how can you find elements in architecture or in food or any of it? And Vancouver seems to do a really good job of it and embody both. Like, how can you play in both worlds and try to, you know, appeal to a broader audience by doing that? It's a challenge, but I think that's what's make this trip so intriguing to me is they found a way to do it. How can we use that as inspiration in our designs?
I think
thing I'm taking away from Vancouver is that just fully embracing that art culture. I think especially to designers, I love that.
Yeah.
Because I think it shapes society, and I think it's really powerful.
Great trip. Glad I can enjoy it with this crew.
Bunch of dorks.
Bunch of dorks.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, no, you're weird.
Cheers, guys.
Especially coming back from Vancouver, I have so much inspiration when I get back into our office. You immediately want to dive right into your work and just start creating things. What I love about it is I don't come back thinking I'm going to take this inspiration and create a faucet. I just want to explore. I just want to be creative. We can take all of those images, all of those sketches, all those thoughts, all of those experiences and share them with the rest of the team. If we can create an art piece in your home that you're proud of, that feels a part of your home, then we've succeeded. Vancouver does that. They included the modern architecture with the historic, but it creates this cohesive city. And I kind of think that's how we are. If I can create a faucet that feels truly like it's a part of your environment, then we've done our job.